business. There is no billionaire in the entire world who owns 100% of the business they are associated with. None. Mark Zuckerberg, in terms of Facebook, in fact, let me just to be precise, Jeff Bezos owns 12.7% of Amazon. Elon Musk owns 13% of Tesla. Bernard Arnault, the one for Louis Vuitton Moet Hennessy, is the richest man in France actually. He owns 46% of LVMH. Warren Buffett, the renowned investor of Berkshire Hathaway, owns only 16% of Berkshire Hathaway. Larry Ellison, the one for Oracle, owns 35% of Oracle. Bill Gates, as I talk to you now, all of you know Microsoft is owned by Bill Gates. He owns less than 1% of Microsoft. Coming to Kenya, when you ask somebody who owns Cooperative Bank, they tell you Muriuki, the CEO. He is actually from here, Nyeri. He owns less than 5% of Cooperative Bank. But what is 5% of Cooperative Bank? A bank with a market cap of around 20 billion Kenya shillings. 5% means he is going to over 6 billion Kenya shillings. 5%. Now you with your 100% of your business, how much is it worth? There is a friend of mine who is also my mentor. Can you tell me by a show of hand who owns Equity Bank? By a raise of hand, tafadhali. I'll pay something for that. Naona wakikuyu ni wengi hapa mkono. Who owns Equity Bank? Monga. Very good. He is also a good friend of mine. So hata nikimkute hapa, he will not be offended. Somebody else who owns Equity Bank? Yes? Mwangi. Can you start? Asita kuita hapa. Najua public speaking, you can't ambush somebody. Who owns Equity Bank? Please rise up, my sister. Who owns Equity Bank? Monga. You said Peter Monga. Now listen, my brothers and sisters. Mwangi, the CEO of Equity Bank, owns 5% of Equity Bank. And all of you told me he is actually the owner of Equity Bank. If you look at the financial statements of Equity Bank, you realize the top shareholders of Equity Bank are not Kenyan. They are FADs, including Norwegian FAD. Do you know Peter Monga now owns less than 1% of Equity Bank? Now keep your 100% of your business. In business, and niliacha kuongea sasa mtu wa kuanza kiosk. Tumesema Mungu anatubariki to start chains. Is that so? Don't seek to own a fish pond. Seek to own just a slice of the ocean resources. Because the fish pond utaweka net, utasweep all your resources in there, and you have to give it months. Dive into the ocean. You are just given a slice, but that slice is worth much more than having many fish pods. And how do you do that? You have a business here. Mambo yote hata nimesema ya bookkeeping is combined. You have a business. You've started, let's say, of making yogurt, making organic soap, of making whatever you may think about. Now you are already progressing. There is so much market, but you can't satisfy. Now out of your bookkeeping, you realize your business is now worth 10 million shillings. But do you know what? You are already feeling very wealthy. And you cannot release. Hii kitu nimeanza na jasho sana. Mimi siwezi leta mtu wa kunisubua. A different person, what do they do? You look for an investor and bring you 5 million shillings into that business. It's not going to your pocket. But you give them 10% of that business. Now, if you receive 5 million shillings for 10% of that business, the valuation of that business becomes instantly 50 million shillings. You use this money to expand other markets, to expand your operations, to buy more machinery. Later on, you get another investor. Now you've already grown, even people are noticing your brand. They come in, they give you 20 million shillings, and you give them a 20% of your business. If a 20% of your business is valued at 20 million, instantly your business becomes 100 million. So even if the percentage continues to diminish, the aggregate continues to expand. Now, umepata kazi juzi, bank. You are now doing business very well as a contractor or anything else. Your first money, what do? Buy a plot. Then after buying a plot, build flats. Guys, my brothers and sisters, big companies like the one I quoted, including Equity Bank, including their own headquarters, is leased. They don't own. So you want to tell me, in your mind you have more CFAs, you have more actuaries, you have more financial advisors than Equity Bank? Old Mutual that bought even UAP here in Kenya. Old Mutual, you know it, is bigger in South Africa. Old Mutual, I saw in the Business Daily this week, they have put up for sale all their real estate assets in the entire East Africa. Wanasema, please come and buy. Hatutaki. Do you know, including that landmark tall building in Nairobi? Ile Christmas wanawekaga vitu hivi mataa mingi tunaona huko. Hata hiyo wanauza. You can go buy. Maybe it's around 5 billion. Now, this is a company that is already divesting from real estate. And I am saying that with all due respect with my brothers who are in that business. I'm now talking to the buyer, not the seller. Other than the house that you live in, and other than the farm that you need, what is this plot you have in Kitegera, and the other one in Kamuru, and the other one in Kigajo, and the other one in Narumoro? Ni ya nini, ni ya kufanya nini? I am not saying that I am an oracle, but I just want to tell you, mimi sina pahali nachukuaga rent. Because you realize this business of building things, building, you are actually doing it for the satisfaction of the people who live in, not for you to make money. Because the return on investment on a flat, the return on investment is less than 8%. People will keep saying, oh, 12 or 15%, toa yote, and you give it time. It will oscillate and still settle down below 8%. That is the math even Equity Bank does. Badala ya kuona building, ati tunasema Equity HQ at all building or the 5 billion, mwaki anaoda, 5 billion ata nikired micro loans. They'll give me an ROE of double digit, maybe 15%. Why can't I lend you the 5 billion mukiwa wegi? By end of the year, munilipe interest, let's say 18% of 5 billion is how much? 900 million. Why can't I give you, munilipe 900 million per year, then nilipe rent 400 million, then 500 million in faida? Let me ask you, when you build a house anywhere, including anywhere in Nyeri, your utility as an investor of that house is only the money you get, because you have no utility of living there. So your math must be very direct. Musianza hizo vitu kuwa sensational, you know, owning a flat, nini. Let's be practical. You have 8 flats, manyumba mrefu hivi. Do you live there? So why did you build? To make money, is it? Is that the most optimal manner of putting your money? That should be your only consideration. Now, usileta emotions. Because if you live there, you can justify and say a utility of a house where you live cannot be justified by how much you are getting. You don't live there. You've not been there for 6 months. Your caretaker lives there more times than you. Then, watu hawapumui, kuna furaha tunacheka ingine, and munaonaga all my friends who build, they are always on phone. Mwaga mchanga, kakoto, there is always a story hapo. Mahiga macio nĩ mwai yake thimaitie. Even if you want to own that flat, why can't you invest where you are getting double digit? After getting that double digit, wait for your brother angangane na simiti kuibiwa, angangane na nini. Wewe ukipata ROE yako ya 18%, after 5 years, through the faida peke yake, uende ununue akuwe amechoka on your behalf. Fanya hesabu, my friend. The other thing is that you do not need to use your money all the time. I do a lot of mentorship for university students in my office. And when they come, everyone, when they want to start a business, it is ni kama kamanyu kanapeanwa pahali. Sasa nikimaliza kuongeleza hivi na venye nimejikakamua leo, hata siongei siasa ati ni juu ya biashara. Then nikitoka hapo unajua utaniuliza aje, okay, umeongea vizuri, where do you get capital? That is the question that is almost resonates every time. Nitatoa wapi capital? Na mimi wacha nikuulize, capital ya kufanya nini? Because that is the what you need to answer. All that, when you get somebody asking you, nitatoa wapi capital? Hana idea. Because if you have a very well polished idea of a business, believe you me, you will attract money. And money is not just borrowing. There are many models of financing a business, and they are in Kenya also, not just in the US. Facebook never became Facebook because it was Facebook. Facebook became Facebook because people like Peter Thiel is a venture capital, invested money in Facebook back then. By the way, mathematics. Peter Thiel invested in Facebook $500,000 and got 2%. Wacha niende pole pole ndio mpate what I'm trying to say. And the other point I talked about 100% of the business. Peter Thiel, there's something called venture capital, and there is something called private equity. There is something called angel investors. What do these people do? They come, uko na idea poa which can be commercialized. They give you money to start, but other than being alone, you seed a stake in your company. You seed a stake. Stake means a shareholding. So you seed. Once you seed, so biashara ikianguka, you don't owe that guy anything. But if the business does well, they are part of that business. So Peter Thiel invested $500,000, got 2%. Just a few years later, Facebook got listed. After listing of Facebook, he sold 2/3 of the 2%. Wacha niongee pole pole hapo. This is a point I want you to understand. He had 2%. He had bought all of it, like tuhudhire pesa cia Kenya, 500,000. Hata tuseme ni ya Kenya. 500,000. A few years later, Facebook got listed. He sold 2/3 of the 2%. At how much? $625 million US. Now, what am I trying to say? If the Facebook founders never needed the money for Peter Thiel, Facebook would still be your 100% owned company now. It will not be the global company we know. The intersection of the... If I found you with 5 million shillings in your bank account, I'll tell your wife. For them to realize you are not as they think. I think by now you already know. All the people I know, by the way, including myself somehow, a lot of money is made during crisis. Warren Buffett, the one for Berkshire Hathaway. I'm thinking as a businessman, you already know Warren Buffett. If you Google Berkshire Hathaway holdings in cash, crazy amounts of money, crazy, in hundreds of billions of dollars. What does he do? He has studied the markets, he has studied the economies very well. Like in the year 2002-08 financial crisis, his work was to deploy cash. Why are you deploying cash? There was a crisis, financial crisis in the entire world. So what was happening? Companies were collapsing. So Warren Buffett, he was happy. Companies were begging him to buy them at any price. So he bought up a company like Bank of America. They merged with another one which was called Merrill Lynch, became BOA Merrill Lynch, bought them for nothing. Another one. So, and he keeps saying, and this is a point you need also when you are investing, when everyone is very greedy, be fearful. And when everyone is very fearful, be greedy. Because we operate in herd mentality as human beings. For example, now, I'll mention something about the NSC, Nairobi Securities Exchange. There was a time I was buying some shares there. Guys were wondering, even my friends, I could tell them, buy. Nunua hii share. Wanashindwa hii mtu. You know, by then, stock market was dampened. Not just in Kenya, globally. By that time, even last year, the entire globe was a rate market. People were chasing after the highest rates, fixed income. So, very few people were paying attention to equities. Equities are shares. I'm just trying to say, when others are fearful, be greedy. When you see everyone is buying a treasury board, fixed income assets, because they are giving very high rates, economies are cyclical all the time. You wait where you need to wait. Wait by buying what they are not buying. And then when the reverse also happens. What am I also trying to say there? You think honestly, because you are saying we are moving from M to B. M meaning? And B? Yeah. If you start kuongea such things, they may appear differently as a politician talking about that. Now, you want to tell me you want to move from M to B, and you can't do basic analysis about your own money. Study markets, study economies. Do you know the time you invest in your day-to-day business? You know, running a business is very tedious. You think about, I'm referring to my brother a lot because I was told what he does. Mafuta, ukienda short ya 3 bob ni hasara because that's all your profit. Every time you are repairing your mind to the extreme. You also need to invest some time learning, studying threads about the economies, how do economies operate for the last 20 years, so that you have a view of how is it likely to operate for the next few years. And you can do that. You don't need professionals to do all those things. You study Kenyan market, you study South African market, you study American market. You can always predict the next time you're having a financial crisis. Even if you are not very precise, you'll not be very far away. And those are opportunities to make money. That's what I'm trying to say. It's not for exam, it's for making money. When you have, now I'm talking about business people and entrepreneurs. As you continue growing, of course you must learn to use professionals. Umeanza biashara, uwezi ajiri hata accountant. HR kuajiri, HR is your wife and you are the CEO. There is always a premium they bring, and especially structuring your business to be a corporate. Stop running a business. Start running a corporation. A corporation where, even if I needed to invest in your business, there is something I can fall back to as data. But you also need to be very obsessed with success. If those of you who like reading, I would challenge you, look for the autobiography of Elon Musk. The one written by Isaacson. I think he's called Isaacson. Those who can read. And you realize, my friends, those people, like now he's worth for over 400 billion US dollars. 400 billion US dollars. US dollars. US dollars, 400 over. US? When you read that book, then you start realizing hakuna vitu ati utaokota tu kwa njia. You have to have an obsession to succeed. Not just at the feeling, some obsession, so that unashikilia, and especially when you had already done your basic analysis and you know what you are doing is right, you have to have some obsession. And I've seen it across people. You read about the founders of Apple, Elon Musk, all those guys I'm mentioning, you realize you need to be obsessed to succeed. Decision making. There is something I want you to always have in mind. And especially I have seen it rife in investments. I've been in stockbroking since, for example, my first year in KU. So I've seen cycles of downs and ups. And I have seen in life, just as in business, just as in entrepreneurship, here you are all employers. Me, I'm not talking to you as employees anymore. Because you already decided, those who are in jobs, you are resigning soon. I think you agreed that a long time ago. Otherwise, you're in the wrong forum. You need to make, maybe a decade is 10 years. You need to make like only 4 strategic decisions in those 10 years, instead of tiring yourself on a day-to-day decision making. When you are making a strategic decision, never afford to make a stupid decision. Use a lot of data. Use a lot of analysis. You don't need to do that every day. For example, in 10 years, you make 4 strategic decisions, you are good to go. But we tie ourselves and our mind making micro decisions that we have no time to think about making strategic big decisions. And those big decisions are what matters. Investors like the ones I mentioned, including Kenya, the decision, for example, Equity did in 2007. A company called the Heriois Capital came, a private equity fund. They got 24.5% of Equity Bank. That strategic decision they made was more important than how the branch operates every day. Strategic decisions. A strategic decision of KCB Bank to go to DRC and buy a bank there instead of starting one from scratch. That needed a lot of decision making that is weighty, deep. That strategic decision making is more important than every day-to-day running of KCB Bank. The strategic decision, let's say, of Brookside selling a stake to Danone, a French company, that decision making maybe is more important than the amount of milk they were processing every day, at that time. You need to make strategic decisions, but not in haste. Because once you make the right one correctly, then you can reap from it for a very long time. And of course, learn as much as possible. Very lastly, those who, I was at some point, some place 2 days ago, and I made a confession which I want to make also now. Despite all the things I have said here, I have already told you, as a businessman, I mean, let's not cheat ourselves that we are here to do this, to create value. You are here to make money. So I'm talking in that length. You know, when you're marketing a house, oh, I want to make good living abodes for other people. You're there to make money, my friend. Out of that, me personally, I have made much more money passively than I have made money actively. And I'll give you one because it is public information which you have read. I see on Twitter, stima ikipotea munaanza maneno. Me, I have never even been to Kenya Power offices because I'm just a passive investor. Passive. I have never been there for the last I don't know how long. The last time I was there was in my capacity as an MP ya kufuata stima in my first term. But this year, last year, the share of Kenya Power, you can go at your own time, was trading. Last year, a time like today, was below 2 shillings. 2 shillings. 2. Meaning, if you bought shares then, if you bought 1 million shares then, you would have spent how much? 2 million shillings. Yesterday, which was Friday, Kenya Power share, after dropping slightly, I know it still go somewhere up, was 13.5 shillings. 13 point? So how much is that? Your 2 million is how much? At the same, your 2 million shares. We say, oh yes, you are right. Your 2 million is? No, it can't be 7. Fanya hesabu, 2 million shares would have bought you 1 million. 2 million shillings would have bought you 1 million shares. 13 and a half. You know najua nikisema hii mnafikiria ni pahali it's real. Si vitu tunasomanga kama hizo nimewambia za Warren Buffett. This is real. Kenya shares 3 months ago. Let me even use December. Kenya shares in December was 1.06. Yesterday, let me say the high. Average for last week. Not too much. 3.5 shillings. I want you to do the percentage. Kenyan shares, a year ago, a time like this, it was cheaper to buy 1 Kenyan share than it was to buy Peremende. It was maybe 3 point something shillings. As of yesterday, 9.7. It doesn't happen all the time. I'm not telling you at the Monday you go buy those shares. No. I am saying this. Some time back, I sat down, downloaded the financial accounts of Kenya Power, read, and I realized, ni mimi tunajua hii mambo ama ni nini? Because I saw a gold mine. I am going back to what I told you. You do never move from M to B at the evil. You have to also spend some time.
All my days work, blood, sweat, and prayers. Came from the bottom, now I'm climbing stairs. Never lost hope, kept my soul alert. This my life, yeah, this my day's work. All my days work.